Hello and welcome to my review of the Dark Angels Legion Leviathan Dreadnought for Warhammer the Horus Heresy from Games Workshop. Well, technically it was from Forge World. One of these back in the day when I picked mine up in 2022 in the summer did cost me £58.50 and then you got to pay for the weapons, which are £15.50 each. You can still pick up the weapons individually, I believe, such as the Leviathan Storm Cannon. That'll set you back £16.50 each, so they've only gone up £1, but it's still nice that you can pick up the weapons separately. I would like to say you can still pick up this Dark Angels Leviathan Dreadnought, but it does say temporarily out of stock, so whether that does actually mean temporarily or not, I don't know. And it's the same for the White Scars Dreadnought, but you can still pick up the Night Lords version, and you can still pick up the Blood Angels version, so at least there's those. There are a few legions that never got their legion specific Leviathan Dreadnoughts, and that's such a shame because they've done an incredible job. And there's definitely differences and similarities, a bit like the Contemptors, between the legions that I would have liked to have seen. I mean, the Night Lords one's fantastic. It pretty much has a cadaver on the pinned to it with flesh and all the rest of it. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. And the Blood Angels one is very nice and red and gold and fancy. And this Dark Angels one follows a similar theme to Dark Angels and its smaller brother, the Contemptor, which you'll see in this video a little bit later on. So they haven't fully been replaced with the plastic kits, but if you wanted to go down that route, you could pick up the plastic Leviathan Siege Dreadnought, which would cost you £50. And I tell you what, the £8.50 more to get this resin one with all the detail, definitely worth the upgrade. You can pick up the Siege Dreadnought ranged weaponry sort of set separately, in plastic, and you can magnetize it as well. There are definitely ways of doing that, but that will cost you an extra sort of £17 if you wanted to do that. So we'll talk about the format of this review. I'll have a look at the Dreadnought up close. We'll look at all the detail and things. I'll go through how easy it was to build. Then there are no spare parts, at least I can't remember there being any spare parts other than possibly flamers instead of the Volkite. I've magnetized these. I'm assuming I've got some flamers somewhere, but yeah, I've magnetized the Volkite in case I wanted to change them up. Then we'll go through some size comparisons with other Dreadnoughts, Contemptors, Deredios, you name it, and then I'll go through all of the rules for this Leviathan Dreadnought. They will just be the standard Horus Heresy rules for a Leviathan Dreadnought because Dark Angels don't have any specific Legion rules for their Dreadnoughts. So the kit itself, if you've built a Leviathan Dreadnought before in resin, I think this was my second resin Leviathan Dreadnought, I think. The plan initially was to get I think 3 with storm cannons for some reason. Just wanted 3, and then a couple with close combat weapons. That didn't really work out in the end, and I ended up just buying, I think, 1 in resin, which happened to be this one. We'll have a look at comparisons in a little bit, but I was able to pick up a few resin Contemptors, just the standard Contemptors. So it's quite straightforward to put together. It's great kit. Plenty of posability, options to magnetize just there. This kit works out better to magnetize than the Contemptor because with these weapons I think you actually do get this shoulder part as well, which is very, very cool. It means that you can swap the weapons about, unlike the actual Contemptors where you don't get that shoulder part. Likewise, I can magnetize the drill and just change this around if I wish. I've magnetized the Volkite. I'm not a massive fan of magnetization in general with like anything smaller than a Dreadnought, like just magnetizing bolt guns and stuff. It just seems a bit pointless because you just end up with lots of pieces lying around that have got magnets in. But for these kits I think it works quite well. I've also got the different weapons other than the melter. I've got the Grav Flux Bombard and the Storm Cannon, which are right here. so I can swap them about as the sort of game dictates, or the army list dictates. They work very well. So yeah, yeah, that does mean I've spent what, £50 on 3 Dreadnought weapons, but there we go. Let's keep the melter on for now. Amazing detail, lots of posability. You've got a decent number of sort of Dark Angels iconography. You've got an actual proper lion head on there this time, rather than like a mosaic, rather than a silhouette of a lion that you get on the Contemptor. You've got a very nicely detailed blade with wings. You've got these little touches of sort of framed armour, which I will be painting. I'm not quite sure to paint them silver or gold. I really want to paint them gold though. For me, it might be that my Dark Angel sort of Heresy force has the silver rim, and then in 40k they then progress and have the gold rim, much like the all my Titans and things. But in a way, I think my Titans would predate 40k minis, predate my 40k force. But anyway, that's a decision I have to make. You've also got this again hooded figure with a sword and some wings. The head in there, you can just see it popping out. You've got the smoke launchers in there. You've got the Phosphex launcher, I think it is. Don't leave home without that. That's incredible. There's nothing really to do with Dark Angels on the shoulder pauldrons. You've got the 4 exhaust stacks there for the big power plant, but you haven't really got anything to say that it's more Dark Angels from the rear, except for the framed exhaust stacks. That's about it. It's not like the Contemptor, where the sort of armour panelling, the filigree or whatever, goes around the back of the legs. It is just those exhaust stacks from the rear. Everything's all on the front. You've got these you've got this arched sort of head alcove thing as well, and that's about it. So there is a fair amount of detail on it, Dark Angel specific, but it's just spread out over a bigger area, whereas the the actual little Contemptor, it's more condensed, and also it has the detail on like the shoulder panels and things. Like if we just bring it in rather than me just talk about it, look, you've got the something on the shoulder pauldron there for the Dark Angels. You've got this layered plate. They're not as layered on the hips there, but you've got a similar kind of feel with the framed armour and the lions, and I guess you got more of an ornate chest piece, but that's just because there's a bigger chest piece there. I don't know whether they could have squeezed in a candle either side of that. That might have been a bit too much. There's just more to play with here on the whole big chest area. So yeah, I guess maybe the Contemptor itself would look more Dark Angels-y than the Leviathan one, but there you go. Spare parts, I don't think there are any, like I said, other than the flamers that I can swap out. So that means that we'll go straight into the size comparisons. And of course, I've just been showing you the Dark Angels normal Contemptor Dreadnought next to a Dreadio. Yeah, I think for some reason people think that the Dreadio is the same size as a Leviathan. I mean, I guess with the rocket pod on, but normally it's the same height as a Contemptor. So yeah, there is that. And then I'll just show you with the plastic, why not? If you've got plastic Horus Heresy, that's where it's going to measure up. It's going to be the same as a normal Contemptor though. And then a Moirax, again, why not? Not quite as big as a Moirax, but pretty big. Again, Telemon Dreadnought is going to dwarf Leviathan still. And a couple more comparisons. I've got the other resin Dreadnought. Ignore all the paint markings there. That's just where I've had to rip the hands off to then magnetize them, because I think I glued them on originally, because that was the plan back then, and I haven't magnetized the Volkite look either. But the plan back then was to glue everything and have a couple of these not think about magnetising the hands. But now I've gone back and I've ripped the arms off, and I can magnetise things and, you know, swap the drill on this Leviathan. But they're going to be at the same height. This is an OG resin Leviathan, not a plastic one. However, this is a plastic one, so with a wobbly base for some reason. But yeah, they're going to be the same size. There's just more going on with the Legion specific one. Not sure why I don't do this comparison more often, especially as it's a Dark Angels unit, is just with the Lion himself. Again, I'm not sure why I don't do this comparison, but it might help in some way if you're thinking about picking up the Lion. You know, in Horus Heresy form, that's where it sort of stands. They are on exactly the same base. Comparisons with other Dark Angels minis, so I've got a companion here, and then a Cenobian Knight, and that's where he measures up. He's going to be one of your biggest units in sort of a standard sort of Legion force. You also have the Rhino, Dark Angels Rhino there. So yeah, unless you start getting bigger than, but yeah, it's going to be one of your biggest kind of bipedal things, unless you've got Moiraxes and Knights, and you know, before you get into the larger sort of tracked vehicles. Final comparison is just with some 40k minis, and that is with a Primaris, a normal Space Marine, and Slime Marbo. So there you go. It's going to dwarf a normal Space Marine. Normal Space Marine barely, doesn't even get up to the hips. A Primaris, I think, just about gets up to the hips. And Slime Marbo, bless him, just past the knee. So yeah, these Dreadnoughts are massive. Main reason why you pick Dreadnought drop pods, really. Okay, so this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the Leviathan, for the Dark Angels Leviathan pattern Contemptor Dreadnought. There's no sort of specific rules for Dark Angels for Dreadnoughts, so I'll just go straight into the sort of standard rules for them, found in, you know, either your Loyalist or Traitor army books. It's actually the very first choice in the book for heavy support. So they're not elites, they are heavy support. They will cost you 270 points. Their movement speed is 6 inches, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, strength 8, toughness 8, 7 wounds, initiative 4, 5 attacks, leadership 9, and a save of 2+. The war gear, it comes with 2 Leviathan siege claws with inbuilt melter gun, 2 heavy flamers, and atomantic deflector. In special rules, a Dreadnought Talon, Hammer of Wrath 3, move through cover, and Legiones Astartes. Dedicated transport, this is what I was talking about earlier. Legion Leviathan Dreadnought Talon of no more than 1 model may select a Legion Dreadnought drop pod or a Legion Charybdis Assault Claw as a dedicated transport. As a dedicated transport, this does not use up an additional force organisation slot, but its points cost must be paid for as part of the army. In my humble opinion, I always think that Leviathans should be in a drop pod, either the Charybdis, which is quite pricey, or a normal Dreadnought drop pod, mainly because their weaponry is very, very short range. I think a lot of players will just pick up a Siege Dreadnought with the Fist and the Claw, mainly to go and rip apart other Contemptor Dreadnoughts in close combat, and Terminators, and, you know, standard troops in sort of that order. The unit may include up to 2 additional Legion Leviathan Dreadnoughts, 270 points per model. Obviously, if you do that, you can't really put them in a Dreadnought altogether. Any Legion Leviathan Dreadnought in the unit may replace either of its Leviathan Siege Claws and inbuilt Melter Gun with one of the following: a Leviathan Siege Drill and inbuilt Melter Gun for 5 points each, a Leviathan Storm Cannon for 10 points, a Cyclonic Melter Lance for 20 points, and a Gravflux Bombard for 5 points. Any Legion Leviathan Dreadnought may take 1 Phosphex Discharger for 20 points, and may exchange both of its heavy flamers for 2 twin-linked Volkite Calivers for 15 points per model. So obviously mine's going to be quite pricey, you know. It's got the Cyclonic Melter Lance, which is 20 points, so that's 290. Then it's got the Phosphex Discharger, which is 20, that's going to be 310. And it's also got the twin-linked Volkite Calivers, which is another 15. So it's going to be 200. So that's going to be 325 points for this one right here, not including the Dreadnought drop pod probably. So very strong model, you know, you can't really beat that toughness 8. It's got a decent number of wounds, it's got that adamantic deflector, its weapon skill and ballistic skill are both 5. Which does put it in the same ballpark as a normal Contemptor. Normal Contemptor is just a bit faster, doesn't have that strength or that toughness, only has 1 less wound, and doesn't have the 5 attacks that this one does. And this is why I would go for both the close combat weapons for it. Whereas the standard Contemptor has access to many more ranged weaponry that this Leviathan simply does not have. I'll just go through some of the weapons that the Leviathan has. So ranged weaponry, let's just start off with the Cyclonic Melter Lance. It's quite a short range weapon though. It's 18 inches, strength 8, AP 1, but it is heavy 4 and armor bane. So you know, you are getting a nice 4 shots with that weapon, even though it does have 6 barrels. Which is always quite odd, but yeah, it's an alright weapon, but you know, the effective range there of that is only going to be 24 inches, let's be honest. So if you're, you know, moving this across the battlefield and you've against an opponent with 5 or 10 las cannons, yeah, you're going to be making a lot of those adamantic deflector saving throws. The other option is the Gravflux Bombard weapon. Which again is only 18-inch range. Its AP is 4. It is a heavy one, large 5-inch blast template though, but it does have Graviton Collapse and Torsion Crusher. It ignores cover and it is concussive, so it does have a couple of extra little rules there that really make it quite strong. The other weapon, which I would probably say is the weakest weapon, and that is the Leviathan Storm Cannon. It's the longest weapon that the Leviathan can have. It is an auto weapon, so that means it's a 24-inch range, strength 7, AP 4, heavy 6, rending 5+, sunder. So it's nice that it gets 6 shots, and it's nice that it's rending 5+, but you know, your mileage may vary with that one, especially with that short 24-inch range. Personally, with the length of those barrels, I think it should be a minimum of 36 inches to make it a more beefier, slower firing heavy bolter really. And then the final weapon, which is often overlooked, it's chest weapons. The Volkite, the twin-link Volkite Calivers, they are probably actually the longest range weapon, you know, that isn't a main weapon. The Calivers are a range of 30 inches, strength 6, AP 5, heavy 3 and deflagrate. And remember, they are twin links, so you're getting a nice sort of 3 shots there at 30-inch range. Quite odd that chest weapons have almost double the range of like the main weapons that it comes with. I've always found that a bit odd. Then the other weapon, the final weapon that is often overlooked, is the Phosphex Discharger, the little kind of missile launcher thing on the top. It's a range of 18 inches, strength 5, but it is AP 2, which is absolutely fantastic. It's heavy 1, barrage, blast 3-inch, poison 3+, crawling fire and lingering death. So there's a lot of special rules to get your head around that one, but although it's a nice little you know, 3-inch marker, it is that AP2, so it's quite scary once you get within 18 inches for it to be firing that thing, along with the Volkite, along with the built-in sort of melter in the fist or the claw, along with the whatever other main weapon it's got, like the melter. So you get one of these dreadnoughts within 18 inches, that's when it's really going to start making its points cost up. Speaking of its melee weapons, you've got a specific Leviathan Siege Claw or Siege Drill. For some reason, they're under the exotic weapon, but also the miscellaneous. But the Leviathan Siege Claw is a strength 10, AP 2, melee brutal 3, and the Siege Drill bumps that up to strength 12, AP 2, melee armor bane. So, you know, this is why equipping them with a drill and a claw is probably one of the best options, because it can rinse through armor, rinse through softer targets, and they still have those built-in melter guns. So although you think that you're foregoing like a main weapon like the Cyclonic Melter, you're getting another fist that also has a built-in melter. So you're still getting 2 melter guns, the Volkite or Flamers, and the Phosphex. So this thing can still pump out a lot of damage. It can also take a lot of damage as well, with that toughness 8 and the 7 wounds, a save of 2+, and an invulnerable save. So it's a very tough unit. Just think giving it an extra edge by putting it in a drop pod would really increase its survivability. What do you guys think of the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought, specifically this Dark Angels version? Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.